You're listening to the Harmony of We, a space for remembering what we already are together. I'm Greg Kuiper, counselor, author, and fellow traveler in this ongoing field of being human. This podcast isn't about fixing. It's not about getting relationships right. It's about coming into resonance with yourself, with each other, and with the presence that lives in between. This is where the book Relationship, the Harmony of We continues, in breath, in story, and in shared awareness. Welcome. I'm so glad to be able to share this time with you today. My hope is that this can be a time for you and I to set and regulate together. In the hustle and bustle of our days, it can be hard to find a moment of just being in presence with ourselves. And for these few moments, sitting in the we together. So take a big breath and let it all out. Relax your shoulders, rotate your neck clockwise and then counterclockwise. Just relax, letting it go. Keep breathing as you hear my voice. In and hold for a couple seconds. Out with a sigh, exhaling slightly longer than you inhale. Yeah, one last time. Pause after the exhale and just be. This is presence. And we are in the we together. Allow yourself to feel that energy. I've been sitting with something this week, something I've seen over and over again in conversations, in relationships, honestly, in my own life. How often we miss each other. Not in big, obvious ways, not in ways we would point to and say, that's the problem. But in these smaller moments, quieter moments, moments where something real is there right now, and somehow it just doesn't quite land. And we move past it, almost without noticing. It can be so subtle. One person reaches, not dramatically, just a small opening, a comment, a tone, a moment of sharing. And the other person doesn't quite meet it, not because they don't care, not because they're trying not to, but because something in them is somewhere else. And the moment passes. And I think this is something we don't always account for. That when we're with someone, we're not just sharing words, we're sharing space, a living space between two people. And inside that space, there's timing, there's pacing, there's emotional state. There's everything each person is carrying quietly. And sometimes those things don't line up. One person might be open, soft, ready. There's a kind of availability in them. And the other person might be somewhere else entirely, still in their day or their thoughts, still in something they haven't even fully felt yet. And so, even though they're sitting right next to each other, they're not in the same moment. And you've probably felt this. That moment where you say something and the response comes back, fine, reasonable, but something in you doesn't settle. You can't quite explain it. Nothing went wrong, but something didn't meet. And there's just the slightest sense of distance. And if we're honest, we've all been on the other side of that too. Someone shares something with us and we respond, but we're not fully there. Not because we don't want to be, but because something in us is already moving, thinking, interpreting, reacting. And without even meaning to, we miss them. And I've been noticing this is where so much of relationship actually lives. Not in the big conversations, not in the obvious conflicts, but in these small, almost invisible moments where connection almost forms and then just barely doesn't. Where something reaches and isn't quite received. And over time, these moments begin to accumulate, not loudly, not in a way we track, but quietly, as a kind of felt experience, a sense that we're just slightly out of sync. That something isn't fully meeting. And that's often where distance begins, not all at once, but gradually. And here's what I keep coming back to: missing each other isn't failure. It's not something to judge, it's not something to immediately fix. It's part of being human. Because we're not always going to be in the same place. We're not always going to arrive in the same moment at the same time. And maybe the shift isn't in trying to get it right, but in beginning to notice. Because there's a moment right after we miss each other, subtle, easy to move past, but it's there. A moment where something in us senses that didn't quite land. And if we can stay there just a second longer, something becomes possible. Maybe nothing needs to be fixed. Maybe nothing needs to be explained. Maybe it's just a small turning back, a soft return. Hey, I think I missed you just now. Or can we slow that down for a second? Or sometimes just a pause, long enough for the space between us to catch up. So maybe this week we don't try to get it right. Maybe we just notice. Notice the moments where we feel met and the moments where we don't. Notice when the we feels alive and when it feels just slightly out of reach. Not to judge it, not to change it, just be with it. Because often connection isn't something we create, it's something we return to together. Thanks for being here. See you next time.